So my name's Tom Cotter, and welcome. And if you haven't got a sample or you want a little more, you're welcome to come up and try our products. And the reason why I put it out there is because that's what regenerative agriculture has done for us. It's taken us to open more markets. And there's guys here, John Strofus, and there's another guy with 7 Sundays. We as farmers need to find an end spot for our products because I want to get paid more. That's what it is. But I also want to make a better product. So God needed a caretaker. So what? What did he do? Come on, guys. I need participation. What? He made a farmer. So in man's eyes, we're farmers. But in God's eyes, what are we? Stewards. We're caretakers. We take care of the land. It's more important than just being a farmer or a rancher. We're a caretaker. And they said it great today. You know, we bring life into the world. We don't bring death. And I was on a co-op board for 18 years. And the one thing that just, you know, I knew I was going in a different path than they were. But the one day when the lead agronomist of 11 different places, co-op, 11 different facilities, he told me, people ask him, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I kill things. And I thought, great, my co-op guy is telling they're killing things when I, as a farmer, I raise things. So that's why I think it's important to have that up there. And so I'm going to be talking on maximizing your cover crops and row crop and livestock systems. And here's a little bit about myself. All right, you can read that. It's, you know, it's good to know. You'll read it faster than I can, but I'll tell you something else about myself on a personal level. I was adopted. All right, and I think it's a gift because when you go through life not knowing what you are and not taking things for granted, you learn to be thankful. And me not knowing what I was like, well, what am I? I never knew. My wife always says I was, you know, Italian because I found out I'm Italian who was raised Irish and thinks he's Mexican. And I love it. I love it because, tell you what, the cultures in Italian and Irish and Mexican, it's fabulous. And when we lose our culture, we lose our food. We lose our food, we end up with shit that we have nowadays. You know, McDonald's and, you know, I want to grow better products. So that's a little bit about myself, but hopefully you guys read that. There's my wonderful family. Brandon, my youngest boy, is back there somewhere, and brother-in-law Tony and his brother Nick are here too. But I want to tell you what my cash crops are. So you heard me talk a little bit earlier. I have 470 acres of conventional ground, which is corn, soybeans, sweet corn, canning peas, alfalfa in rotation. This year I didn't have alfalfa because I had enough forage. I didn't know there was going to be a drought, so I kind of wish I would have had some more alfalfa, but it's all right. And of course, cattle grazing. On the organic side, I don't do the peas in there yet because I just, you know, I don't feel like I've got the weeds under control as good as I really want in the pea scenario. But I'll get there. It just has to be timed right. So maximizing your cover crops and row crop system, first thing I do is I follow soil health principles. Usually I show all that. You guys should know them. We'll talk a little bit about them. But I also have goals because I want to make the best out of this. So I set goals and I set planting. And lots of time that comes up with chemical and methods of planting. Tell you what, I plant a lot of different ways and I do it on purpose because I don't know what Mother Nature is going to send us. So I want to be able to adapt to everything that's happening. Grading your plants, I think that's huge. You know, we go out there and we scout our corn, we scout our soybeans, and we see what's wrong. It's the same thing with the covers. My covers are a cash crop too. Spring growth, termination. You know, if you're going to grow it, you better learn how to kill it because I don't want someone to have a problem and not be able to find the right answers. Tillage or chemical. We'll talk a little bit about that. And again, diversity. Even though that's in the soil health principles, I'll show you why I think it's important. So soil health principles, armor the soil, right? Keep it covered. Your best asset is your ground. Just like a landlord, their best asset is a house. They get that roof on there. I'm doing it right now on a rental I have. Minimize soil disturbance, and that is everything. That's not just mechanical, it's also chemical. I don't like doing either. And if I'm going to do something, I do it with a purpose. And if I do a bad thing, like tillage or chemical, I make sure I go the other way and I do something, a good thing for the soil. Because you gotta remember, the soil is alive, so we gotta treat it right. Now, plant diversity is probably one of my favorites. There's the one other one too that's my favorite, but that's one of them, and we'll talk more about that. And then, continuous living plant. You know, once you get into cover crops for a couple of years and you understand the plants and your soil is kind of used to working with all these different plants, we'll see it besides corn and soybeans, then you start getting the chance to have a continuous living root. And I can go back on fields, I bet you 4 or 5 years easily where there's been a living root the whole year. And lots of times I don't count, you know, soybeans get taken off and then plant cereal rye. No, that cereal rye needs to be interseeded into that, you know, 1st of September. And then I have a living root in the ground nonstop. Livestock integration, that's my other favorite thing. Diversity and livestock integration is what really made my soil explode, and I'll show you as we go on. And of course, context. Does everyone know what context is? It's got to fit in your situation. But does that mean you get a get out of jail free card for doing something wrong? No. Be honest to yourself and try your best. If you have to do tillage, there better be a dang good reason why. And like I said, if you're going to do it, do a positive to counteract it. Same with chemical. If I'm doing chemicals, I'm making sure I'm going as light as possible, and there better be the weeds there that I want to kill. I'm not just going to put it out there for the heck of it. You know, this year in my area, well, everyone's area, it was drier than heck. Oh, fungicides only when it's wet. Do you know how many people put fungicides and insecticides out there that they didn't even look? The co-op salesman, the agronomist, you know, just said, hey, we're making a trip, let's throw it in anyways. Wrong answer. Don't do it if there's not a reason. So goals, my goals was to reduce tillage and weed suppression. And that's actually how I fell into organic. I wasn't planning on going organic, but my weed control was fabulous with the winter rye. All right, organic transition, you said. Forage needs, I have cattle. I haven't cut a corn crop for silage for a long time. And even before that, we did sweet corn silage, so we didn't really do much cutting of corn then either. But water infiltration, tell you what, I'm right on I-90, so yeah, I'm in Austin, Minnesota, right along I-90. And I'll show a picture where there's about 600 acres of the swampiest ground you ever seen, holds water, and guess where it all goes? Right under I-90 in 2 spots, and it all dumps right on me. So I have to control this water. The cover crops help me do it. So what are your goals, guys? Everyone should have a reason why they're doing this. You know, I loved it best out there, family. That's really why I do it. All right, so planning. If you're new to cover crops, you're in the right spot because you need to start learning this winter. And don't stop with this one event, go to some more. What are you gonna plant? If you're a beginner, winter rye is just so dang easy. It works really good. How are you gonna plant it? There's multiple different ways, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. How many pounds to plant? If I'm a beginner, I'd stay at 45, maybe 50. Later in the year, I plant heavier. If I'm doing for forage, I go even heavier yet. But there better be a reason why you're doing it. All right, check on herbicide residual, because that is huge. All right, and here's some great spots to look up. I will say I probably like the Penn State best, that's why it's on top, but U of M is down there, but it's really good stuff, and it's right here in your backyard, so it's valuable. All right, and now, if I'm a beginner, I haven't planted a cover crop yet, so you came to your wintertime workshops, you figured out what you want to plant is what? Winter rye, right? Okay, you know how you're gonna plant it. Start getting out and get your cover crop seed ordered early, because there are shortages out there, all right? And you don't want to get stuck, and actually even trucking can make it a problem, because you know we want Minnesota to grow more cover crops. The infrastructure is not there yet, guys. It's hard to get. Trucking is hard. Fuel goes up, those truckers will send fuel way before they'll send cover crop seeds. So think about that. Get to more field days, because it's great to come here, but you need to find someone around you. You need to talk to, the more people you talk to, the better. And of course, knowledge is power. It's the only thing you get to take to the grave. All right? So learn as much as you can. Now, if you did that in the summer, fall time, it's time to plant. There's high clearance, there's aerial before harvest, there's spreading after harvest, light incorporation if you want. If you're gonna go after harvest, though, the drill is still the best. Get it in the ground. I still VT and I do a couple other things, but I don't VT every year. There's always something else. I'm always planting different ways, and we'll see that. Are you planting the right seeds? You know, get them at the right depth. Of course, whatever you do when you're planting that is gonna be your seed bed for next year. And I'll show you why I know that, because when I first started, I was using a disc to plant my cover crop seeds. And I'll show you that. Now, if you went through that and now the next spring you actually are gonna start to plant your first cover crop. If you've already planted cover crop, you're already here. But I like to get out and scout my cover crops just like I do corn or soybeans. And have your planter ready for no-till, because it's very easy. You know, everyone thinks that they gotta charge more for it. Doing a experiment with the local co-op, which I was on the board with, and they literally would plant cover crops, and then they'd go add like $3 onto the planting. It's like, it's the same planter doing the same job. Well, yeah, but Iowa rates charge more. That's ludicrous. They should charge less, because it actually takes less fuel to plant no-till than it does tilled ground, because it'll go across the ground much easier. And I always think, trust yourself. You know, confidence is everything. Absolutely trust yourself and be prepared. And now planting covers, I'm super flexible, all right? I told you I plant different methods, different ways of planting. I plant almost every month of the year. I have. Not this year, I'm not planting every month, but I've planted February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way up to December. Usually it's January and February that I don't plant something. All right, so be ready. Methods of planting. So in the springtime, I'm frost seeding. That's usually March, April. Drill if you want. If you're doing oats or something like that, you can broadcast. I often go out and look at the fields, and if it's a really good field and I want to graze it, I'll plant even more. I like to get oats out there. Winter rye is great to graze or triticale, but now if you have oats and winter rye or trit, now you have more variety for your livestock to eat. Of course, midsummer, all that. That's actually the first way I learned how to plant cover crop seeds, Johnny Appleseed. It's all it takes, because if you're just doing corn, soybeans, you don't know what a different plant looks like, right? So get it out there, spread it out there. I've used a floater truck. They picked my sweet corn in about 2 inches of rain while they're picking. The ground held up really good. I didn't do any tillage except for the headland, but I knew there was so much water out there. You know, September 15th, I thought, you know, if I can get that seed planted out there now, today, September 15th, it's gonna do way better than if I wait till it dries up and try and plant it October 10th. Because 3 days in September are like 2 weeks in October, just because of the sun and the heat. And there I am, always freshening up pastures. And there I am, that crop was a good crop. Gonna use it for forage, go plant some more stuff out there. Now this, I built this interseeder, actually me and Tony did. And the amazing thing about this is, what do you think I'm really doing out here? What do you see on the ground? Is it covered? All right, it's covered. I put that house on my best asset, the ground. But what does that ground need? It's alive. It's got shelter. What else does it need? Come on, Scott. Looking right at you.
More living roots?
More living roots. Doesn't need food. It needs food. It needs living roots. All right, we have shelter. Now I'm planting species out there. Now I have food. Now I don't need to buy a bug in a jug. That's the thing with these bug in a jug. Oh yeah, you're gonna go throw it out there. Well, that's food for a little bit of time, but I need a continuous living root to feed those. I need shelter. You know, you don't go put a camp out in the middle of Africa and give them no shelter and just food. It doesn't work like that. And you can't give them shelter without food either. It's the same thing for the soil. You can also do interseed. Andy Linder, a friend of mine, he's actually here. If I don't get the interseeding done in the corn in early June, I'll have him come back later. But I really like him interseeding my soybeans the best. because then that gives me another possibility to graze in the fall. And of course, there's aerial, but I will tell you, if you're gonna use aerial, guys, make sure you find a good one. Because just because they can fly a plane doesn't mean they can plant cover crops. There's been horror stories about purple top turnips growing out of gutters. You don't want that. If your wife has a rash growing up in her flower bed, you're in trouble, all right? And of course, I like to use something like this too. I go out and I spread the seed and I incorporate it with a rotary hoe. You can't even tell that's out there. It's better than broadcasting, but now I'm just literally taking the residue, fluffing it up, throwing the seed out there, it falls down, it grows, unbelievable. There you can see what that does. And the cool thing about that is when you're a rotary hoe, you're 30, 40 foot wide, going 9 miles an hour, I can literally pick beans all day. Next morning, I got 2 hours, I go out, I can seed everything that I just picked. I can be right behind the planter, or combine if I need to. All right, so that's a beautiful crop. Drilling's best. That's how I started. That's like the worst thing you can do, right? Big, heavy disc. But that was my context 20 years ago. I bought that Gandy box for $600 at an auction. Right now, they're worth 4,500 used, 10,000 new. But I knew it was a versatile tool. And that one is the same one that went on the interseeder. It goes on the vertical till. I want to make a Cullipacker. I want to do a lot of things, and that thing is awesome. It gets kind of monotonous switching it, moving around, but it's still a great tool. But my point is, I made it work. Still did my tillage. I was actually getting paid to do my tillage is the way I looked at it 20 years ago. And I'd take 2 steps forward, was planting the cover crop, and then I have to take a step back because I was doing tillage. You know, doing a good thing, doing a bad thing. Kind of balancing out, but I always want to get better. Here's what I do nowadays on some of the ground, not all the ground, because some of the ground gets interseeded, some of it gets just spread. If I know a rain's coming, I'll go spread that stuff on top of the ground and let it rain to germinate. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. And you know what? I don't like doing tillage. I don't put brand new blades on that thing. I haven't done a dang thing to that thing because I don't want to touch the ground much. But when I have sweet corn or peas, I do get little ruts from the combines because there's a lot of heavy machinery out there running. And so I like doing it that way for that. But I don't want to do that every year because then all of a sudden we're getting into continuous tillage. And even that, even though it's very minor, it's still doing it. So grading your fields in the spring. This is what I do. I go out and I look like, hey, all right, an A grade, perfect field. Best whole fields, well, that one field I showed after the rotary hole, that was a perfect field. That was a grade A. Every corner was spot. Now I can start thinking about reducing chemical. You know, I can think about saving money on that chemical and great soil life. Forage, I always think, man, that was easy. But then sometimes I go out there and there's a B grade. Good survival, but not perfect. I have little patches. And that's me. I'll take that little pendulum spreader that you saw, and I'll go spread in those spots. Because I don't want any bare spots on that ground. Because then there's no way I can reduce chemical if I'm leaving bare spots. All right. Still good below ground things happening. I've seen a lot of good things even with holes out there, but I want more. I want that cover crop growing A grade. C grade, you see the green overall has some winter kill spots. Go spread them on them because you don't want bare. I have to work at this. You know, it's not easy. Sometimes you'll start this cover crop journey and everything will work just perfect and you think you got it made. Trust me, reality will slap you and you'll have a mistake. And I still think the best time to learn is from a mistake. Not always things working perfectly. Now D grade, this is more my high school days. D grade, I need to determine what happened out there. And this is why it's super important to network with neighbor farmers. Because if you have a problem and something didn't grow, is it weather related? Is it how you planted it? If you don't have someone around you, how are you gonna know if it's weather related? Maybe they had planted at the same time, but they planted a different method that worked better. Now you know, all right? Treat it like your cash crop. Now, F, total failure, don't give up. Coach wrestling for many years, and every time a kid, and everyone loses, but it's all about getting back up off that mat. Just because you lose in the cover crop game or soil health doesn't mean you quit. Because if you quit once, you're going to quit the rest of your life. So make sure you keep on trying your best. And that's when you're really saying, okay, somebody please help me. And the cool thing is, they said it today, this cover crop, soil health world, we are willing to help. That's how I got into hemp too, growing hemp. They're very helpful too. We're not trying to cutthroat people, we just want to make a better world. So springtime growth and termination. I always think, what plant height am I comfortable with? When I first started, about that tall was fine. I got the ground used to it, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I got the ground used to it. Now I'll plant corn into anything. But I'm changing my management of nitrogen. I got that soil, learning how to work with more plants than just one. All right, what helps winter survival? What do you guys think that helps the cover crop over winter? I showed it to you in that interseeder, my big interseeder that's out in the field. What's on the ground? Residue. You can have a green plant, but you better have something else. Corn stalks, standing corn stalks, that's giving shelter. That's giving snow. I love it when snow is on my field. You know why? Because that snow is protecting my cover crop. My cover crop is protecting my soil. If that snow is not there and that wind is coming at negative 40 below, that's where you're probably going to have more winter kill. So always try to have more residue, more higher carbon to nitrogen ratio stuff out there. They'll protect your soil. What benefits do I really want? I want soil life. The more I've done this, the more soil life is the key secret to me. And forage possibilities, I'm always thinking about forage. Do we have any cattle guys or livestock guys in here? All right, good. So I want to make sure I'm talking if it needs to be talked about. Do I terminate before or after planting? What do most people do in this room, before or after? After? All right. Anyone before? It's okay, you can raise your hand. Weather related? Yep. If you're going to spray, if you're going to terminate before, you definitely want to make sure that you don't have a rain event coming, because you don't want that cover crop to go down without planting and have it dead, covering the ground, hold the moisture in, then you are trying to plant, all right? Tillage or chemical? Neither are good, but how do I reduce effects? Don't be an addict. What do I mean by that? Don't chronically do it. I don't care if it's chemical or physical tillage. Just try and reduce as much as possible. The soil is alive, and if you spray with chemical nonstop, you're hurting it. If you're doing tillage nonstop, you're hurting it. I usually show a slide of Chernobyl, and it's absolutely beautiful. Green grass, deer out there, it's gorgeous. The ground can recover from the chemical and the man-made stuff. But what did they do at Chernobyl, guys? They got rid of people. After the event, they got rid of people, and soil life, nature bounced back without people. Because we chronically do things too much. So don't be an addict. Don't overdo chemical. Don't overdo tillage. Think about it. Something with a purpose. Gary Zimmer always said tillage with a purpose. Same with chemical. Chemical with a purpose. So termination techniques. This is important because if you grow stuff, you got to know how to kill it. This is where co-ops really don't like cover crops, because all of a sudden they get called in to spray. They don't know what the heck they're doing. And all of a sudden you have a big failure and you're pointing at the co-op, and the co-op says, oh, it's that damn cover crop. No, it's not. It's your mindset. You got to learn how to do stuff. So I always make sure it's actively growing. Just like if I'm going to kill weeds, make sure your cover crop's actively growing. Look at temperatures of days before and after application. That has a huge impact on how much that will absorb. Spray between 9 and 3. Don't go after, don't go before. Make sure your water is balanced. That's very huge, because everyone's wells is hard water. You need to soften that up so that chemical can work better. Add a pre-herbicide. If you're killing winter rye, I'll put a pre in with my glyphosate if I have to, if I want it. But realistically, if you're going to do, if you have annual ryegrass out there, don't put the pre-emergence chemical in there. Just go kill that annual ryegrass, because it's a harder beast to kill, but it's still doable. And then also, that's all chemical, but what about crimping? You can crimp at the right stage. Make sure you're heading out, anthesis should be, not anthesis, but make sure it's at the right spot. Usually in our area, Minnesota, it's probably June 5th, 10th, somewhere in that time frame. I think I've done some at June 5th, probably should wait to June 10th. Banding chemical, I did this here a couple of years ago and I loved it. Banded my herbicide, so I literally cut my glyphosate and pre-emergence down to, 8-inch band on 30-inch rows, and then I came back and, well, Mike, you're working on an in-row crimper, right? Now in Minnesota, now I can crimp my soybeans a little easier. Down south, Russell, yeah, he can have that tall rye and crimp. If I'm going to get that rye that tall, that's June 15th. Maybe I want to plant earlier. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Every field for me is different, so I go by fields more on planting than I do, I just want to plant it all early or late. Green manure incorporation. If you're going to be doing tillage, at least you're incorporating green manure. That's a good thing. Tillage is bad, incorporating green manure is good. Grazing low. This is what I do a lot in the organic scenario. We'll let that cover crop grow up, get as much soil life pumping, as much carbon as possible, and then we'll put the cattle out there, let them graze it down lower so it's easier to manage with tillage, because in the organic scenario. But if I do tillage, guess what? I want to interseed a cover crop really soon, because the longer that ground's exposed, the more degradation is going to happen. Tillage or chemical, there's pros and cons of both. It's up to you what you have available to you and what makes the most economical sense. I will say evidence suggests tillage was done in 3000 BC. How many years left of soil life do we have? What do they say? 60 years? Okay. It's a pretty long time. We got 60 years left. Of course, the United States, we only started doing tillage 150 years ago. Been doing it intensely since about 1952 when tractors, after World War II, that's when the peak tractor production happened, along with chemicals too. So realistically, to me, I look at it and say, okay, heavy tillage and chemical since 1950s. Chemical, I'd probably say 1970 to 90s when it really started getting intense. But synthetic pesticides began in the 1930s and became widespread after World War II. How many years left of that do we have? It's hard to tell in the soil, but how about human health? Think about it. How much disease, cancer is out there? It's just absolutely skyrocketing. I usually have that slide in here, but I'm trying to keep it short, but it's on a trajectory that we don't have 60 years left as human health. And there's hidden costs of each. I'm not going to point and say which one's worse. I think they're both bad. I think moderation is the key. Just like my beer, moderation. All right, diversity. We had diversity in the beginning, right, with the soil health practices or soil health principles. But to me, it's even more important because that diversity, having the right plants working together is huge. Helps survive drought, disease, extreme weather, and temperature. Like us, they are stronger together than alone, right? A 4-man football team or basketball team doesn't get very far. It's always better to have a full team out there. And I think Jay will talk a little bit about the Minoka farm where they actually can show that species together will survive a drought much better than a single species. But now, that's up there, but I think it's more important to get the soil relearning how to work together. Because I said my farm, we started doing tillage in 1874. And we started planting monocrops. And that soil biology that's alive, microbes, started working with one plant only. That's pretty cutthroat when your only food source is one plant. So they're almost fighting each other for that one plant. And now you're going to throw a different species in there, and they're still trying to kill each other because they think there's only one plant. That's lots of times Russell Shoy said, when I first started planting cover crops, I let them grow to that height. If he would let them grow the same, 5 feet, that first year, that ground was not used to that. I always say you got to earn the right to no-till your corn. So I started no-tilling soybeans right away, but the corn, I had to train the ground a little bit. I trained that plant and make it so that soil has a huge colony of microbes working to help that plant, not just one species of microbes. Yeah, I think it's more about relearning that soil as a living entity, learning how to work with multiple plants. And there's diversity. I love diversity because when I plant it, if it's dry, guess what? These plants do better. If it's wet, those plants do better. I don't know what weather is going to happen. If it's going to be hot, cold, wet, dry, that's where the plants come in. Multiple species are fantastic. Now, soil health, referred to as soil quality, is defined, whatever. You guys can read that. Guess what? I'm a farmer. You guys are farmers. You should be able to tell your soil health just by looking at it. We've lost our senses. My cattle have all their senses. We've lost our sense of, well, sight, we're okay. I'm getting kind of bad, but smell, taste. I can hear soil health. When I go grab a plant out of the ground and I pull it and I hear it absolutely just ripping like Velcro, that's good. That's soil health, because those roots are just holding on every bit of soil life there is. I can taste it. In the wintertime, I can go pull up our winter rye and it's pliable just like gum and it's fantastic. I can smell it. That was one of the first things I noticed on soil health, is when that smell, because I grew up, if you read my thing, I grew up 4 feet in the ground doing tiling with my dad. And I couldn't find a worm to take Brandon fishing because there were no worms. But I did say the soil always smelled dead. Started planting cover crops, started smelling really good. That was my first thing. I was like, wow, smells good down in this hole. I'm sure glad I'm down here digging all day. No, but the smell is fantastic. That's when I think the last time soil was really healthy. When we had buffalo out there grazing, moving from spot to spot, I mimic that. I try and mimic it. My cattle are probably spread out a little more. And I go from 3-acre paddocks to 10-acre paddocks. It all depends on the time of the year and my context. During harvest, we don't cut them down too small. We give them 10 acres, whatever, because we're concentrating on harvest. But when we have time, we try and get them tighter. So maximizing your cover crops on a livestock system, cow-calf feeders. Do we have any, the livestock guys, are they feeders? Are they cows, cow-calf? Cow-calf pair, same? Cow-calf, all right, good, I like cow-calf guys. So you gotta know what you have. Do you guys feed them out too then? Yeah. Okay, all right. So what do you plant? What chemicals were used prior to planting? Because there is residual in those cover crops from that chemical going to those cover crops. When are you grazing, cutting, warm versus cool season? Where are my covers being planted? Oh yeah, how do I get more forage possibilities? And guess what, diversity again. So for me, more forage possibilities means I need to, corn soybean rotation's pretty hard, and you can get covers in there, but they're not gonna be huge. So now I got sweet corn, I got peas, I got sunflowers, I got hemp. I have more options. So that's getting diversity in your cash crop. You can go to small grains, you can go to shorter maturity, or you can even go to shorter statue corn, because that interseeding is gonna succeed much better when you have shorter corn. When corn is 12 foot tall, it's hard for that cover to get started and hard to survive. Diversity in what the livestock consume. Most guys just give their livestock one kind of thing and that's it. Corn, silage, whatever, all year long. I like to give them everything. I let them pick and choose because they got their senses. They know what to eat at the right time. And of course, warm season, cool season, grasses, legumes, brassicas. Here I'm out interseeding. Thank goodness that's not too loud. Now I'm a little embarrassed about this bare soil. That was like a D or F grade year on my cover crop, but that actually was the winter. It was really hard on cover crops, but that was a negative. So I came back with the positive, planted a cover crop. Get some food out there, try and get some shelter going. That interseeder was literally 2 rotary holes sitting in the junk pile in that Gandier box. So I got $600 in the box, some time and labor that me and Tony did, and we just threw it together. And I always thought, oh, if it works great, I'll build a better one. It's worked so good, I use it 2 days out of the year because I can cover the ground so fast. Why spend the more money? All right, this is what I like to interseed. I like Bounty Annual Ryegrass, probably one of the best rooting systems out there. I get that, Saddle Butte, Bounty. Purple top turnip. I have never not pulled up a purple top turnip and not had a worm. If you have purple top turnips out there, I guarantee you start pulling it up, you will have worms every time. And it doesn't matter what time of the year it is, I can find them. Bayou kale, I love that because you know what? It's kind of like in between a radish and a rapeseed. Best part about it is the cows eat it and it regrows. Fabulous. Red clover, I always make sure I have a red clover out there, just something, just so that ground is saying, hey, there's someone here that knows how to make nitrogen or collect nitrogen. Get that ground primed up, working with these different plants. Rapeseed, that overwinters pretty good with winter rye. And I always read that cattle don't like it. That's bull because my cattle will go eat that stuff. Fabulous. Common vetch is great. African cabbage, radish. If you're grazing and you're planting radish, what happens when the cow comes up and kicks that tuber over in the fall? That's where all the nitrogen is stored. What happens, guys? Come on, I've talked to third graders and they talk way more than you guys. All right? John, what happens when you kick that tuber over?
Unearth and other stuff.
All that nitrogen that's in that is now going to get released. Now it's releasing in the fall. The whole idea is to keep that nitrogen there in the soil. Purple top turnip will hold the nitrogen even better than the radish. The radish is a big hero, you know, because that was the shining cover crop star that got it started, so I got to give it that. But there's better things to graze than radish. But I do like it because that's diversity. If I'm going to plant Nebraska, it's usually keep them under 2 pounds. So I'll literally plant like 4/10 of a pound of one thing, half a pound of another. Usually it's 1 pound kale, half pound rapeseed, and a half pound of radish or rapeseed. But I want to keep it low because otherwise you start shading that ground too much and then you'll lose your seeds per square foot. And the cool thing is when I interseed right, that's right the day after harvest. Tony, how did that smell when we combined that? A great salad. Great salad. The cool thing is the cows turn that great salad into a great steak. That's the key. But if you don't have who doesn't have livestock here again? Raise your hands. Okay, well you can always, if you're by the cities, you can put an ad up for free range vegans. They will come out and pick through your field because it does smell good, but just make sure you use a high tense, high strength fencer because they're not very smart. Because to me, meat is king, but only if meat is done naturally. You know, cow's life should be 20 years. When it's straight corn, you're killing their liver. Their liver is trying to kill them because of the corn. You got it. If you go natural with more of a grass-based, you have a better product. You have a better product for us to eat, better omegas, all that stuff. So cow-calf feeders. Cow-calf, everything is on the table, but I'm more interested in tonnage. I want to make sure I have feed for that cow through the winter. Winter rye, trip base, it's always there. Feeders, I'm grass finished, so I like diversity. I want that smorgasbord. I want them to go to the buffet and say, oh man, I get to eat this and this and this. And when I first started doing this, we had paddocks and I went out there, notepad, sat down. My favorite thing is to sit down in a cover crop field that's tall and just see what's really happening. But I was out there watching the cattle and I wrote down the first thing that they ate. And then the second, and then the third is like, all right, I'm a freaking genius. I know what they want. I won't plant anything else. And then when they moved to the next paddock, guess what they did? Totally opposite, and they ate something else. And I started realizing, okay, September 15th compared to September 25th, October 1st. These plants are pulling up different nutrients all different times of the year. Just like a corn plant. Oh, you gotta have a ton of nitrogen out there. Well, you know, when it's V4, Russell said it uses what, 20 pounds of nitrogen or something like that? It's not till later. Same thing with these guys. If you want your cattle have those senses. We don't have the senses. We don't know, but they do. That's why I prefer grazing over anything. Single species, multiple species. And the cool thing about that, right there, that was organic transition. Instead of doing straight alfalfa, it had alfalfa. It had, I can't even remember the name of that plant. Well, I had like 6 different species. My tonnage was down a little bit compared to the straight alfalfa, but when it got switched to organic, wherever that multi-species was in, those yields were almost double to the straight alfalfa. So very good to have that, and that's where I want to finish my grass-fed on. And of course, I'll even do weeds. Of course, I grow weed, right? I mean, not cannabis, but they'll eat weeds too. There's a guy here, organic guy, that shows a video of all the cattle eating ragweed. I absolutely love it. Actually, I should have thrown a picture in, but we take it and we put a fence right along the road, and then we let them eat the ditch. Just one day, because it's mob grazing, they clean out the ditch. I don't have to mow them. My cattle get to eat. That's a good thing. How long does it take to set up fence for the road, Tony? Tony does all the work. I just talk. He does the work. Hour? 20 minutes? It'd take about 2 hours to mow that, at least. So now, what to plant? This is really up to you guys. All right? Do you want quantity over quality? I do both. I want that tonnage of winter rye, but man, winter wheat is a way better feed source. Winter trit's right in the middle. It gives me better feed source than winter rye, but not as much tonnage as winter rye. So I balance it. I use a little bit of both. Everything gets to play at the table. All right, if you have multiple species, make sure you have a mixture of grasses, legume, brassicas. Let that ground learn how to grow. Warm season versus cool season forage. Cutting for forage or grazing. I prefer grazing, but guess what? It's hard to graze in January, so I cut enough bales to bale graze, and then we'll literally do bale grazing starting usually around December 15th through about February 15th. Always want my cattle out on the ground. And they love the diversity out there. Now this guy works really hard to get the sunflowers, or this girl, that's a mama. The thing is, when I first put sunflowers out there, those cows did not eat the sunflowers. I'm thinking, oh, well that's okay, because I like it when cows don't eat all the cover crops. I like it when there's something left there. But either those cows are trained to like the sunflowers or different time of the year and pulling different nutrients, and boom, it was the right time, the cows ate it. And of course, it doesn't matter if it's green or, if it's dead. You can see right there, the cows are still going in that dead stuff too, just as much. That was actually a seeding mistake. We ran out, something broke. We went for like 2 strips, and then we had to come back, and I seeded winter rye in there. It didn't matter. The cows still liked it. I liked it even better because now they had options, and I can see those options. And of course, city people call that like landmines. I call them gold mines. That's absolutely what I want on my ground. Said I love diversity and I love livestock integration. Every one of those precious cow pies has a little ripple effect. And it just keeps on growing and gets out to about 3, 4, 5 feet of soil life exploding. Every time a cow eats something, their saliva gets more microbes. They're going out the back end, more microbes. That's what we need, because what did 150 years of tillage do to my microbial colonies? It destroyed them. This helps get them back out there. Chemicals. Like when I'm interseeding into my corn, June 10th, 15th, I have to be very, very cautious about what I'm spraying, because lots of times that pre-emergence herbicide is what's really going to ding you on grazing those cover crops. And most people probably don't have to worry about it, but I talk about it, so I kind of have a bullseye on my back, and so I'm extra careful. Read your labels, guys. Should be reading them anyways. I think Roundup made it really easy for us to just kind of forget about it and just go spray it. Read your labels. In fact, I asked my chemical guy, and I went, well, what about this chemical? Well, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I'm like, you're selling it to me. How do you not know what it is? Now, so best weed killer is usually the worst possibility for forages. All right? So if you go get something stacked with 4 different traits, you're going to have a hard time growing something. All right? I go with kind of the old, not so great, but if it's not so great, I better have a really good cover crop holding those weeds off. Warm season versus cool season. I do plant cool seasons in with my warm season mixes. So like if I'm going to be planting, say, July 15th, I'll put 1 to 5 cool season in there because I want layers. And what I mean by layers is the sorghum sudan, the sun hemp, the sunflowers, all this stuff is growing tall. I'll let the cows go out there and graze, and they bring it down to about that. Then all of a sudden there's a layer of brassicas and legumes underneath there, cool season. Then now those can start growing. During the summer, those warm seasons kind of protect it, keep them shaded. Don't want those cool seasons to burn up. But once you take that top layer off, then those can explode come September 15th or whenever. So I do not plant warm seasons in with my cool season mixes. Why, guys? Oh, come on. Why would you not plant a warm season in with your cool season mixes?
You're planting them in a cool season,
They're not going to grow. The cool seasons will grow in the summer, but they'll act different, but if you have them shaded, they'll survive. Don't put warm season in, say September 1st or September 15th. And warm season always has at least 2 to 3 grasses, legumes, brassicas. Always try and have 2 to 3 of each. Winter or warm seasons, I usually have 2 to 3 of warm and cool of legumes, brassicas, grasses. Where do I plant cover crops? Where do you guys think? Come on. Everywhere, guys. Because I don't know what Mother Nature is going to bring me. I don't know if I'm going to have a success or a failure. I want to be prepared and have something succeed. If all hell breaks loose and we have no rain, I got something growing somewhere. I'll guarantee it. All right, spring grazing, I usually put heavier rates out there, and I make sure that the crop residue is there to compensate for soft ground. One of my favorite pictures is me grazing on corn stalks that was interseeded with red clover and annual ryegrass the year before. And on the other side of the fence, literally 5 feet from my cows walking in my field, not doing any damage, is my neighbor's field tilled up and standing water. I had living root in the ground. I had soil residue there to structure to help hold it. Fabulous. Maximize your row crop cover crops, your livestock cover crops. What about maximizing soil health benefits for you financially in all different options? I always think of farm incomes. I went from corn, soybeans to now there's 7 different revenue streams. Weather. I can maintain weather, and I'll show that again. Financials, positive, negatives. Soil health benefits. Your soil life has an effect. It's either good or bad. Future generations. I really saw that today when who was speaking up there, Mark Grant, and who was the other guy?
Phil Smith.
Phil Smith. Did you guys hear it in his voice? He was excited. He was passionate about farming. I wanted to ask him, how was it 20 years ago? How you feel about your farming and your life has a huge impact on you. Why farm if you're miserable? I guarantee you, I've seen 80-year-olds who are more excited about farming like this than they've ever been in their whole life. Man, that's a good way to end your farming career, being excited. So, health of animals, feed, food, family, communities, wildlife, water, our nation, because we're only as strong as we are there. So for me, it got me into hemp. When my partner came and said, hey, you want to grow hemp? I thought, no problem. I grow 40 different species of plants anyways. I'll do this one too. And I absolutely love it because it's one of the best plants in the whole world. And then we got into grass finished. We'd never done grass finished before. But when you have all that feed out there, you might as well let them eat it, to an extent, not too much. Great markets there. I got to be a seed dealer. I kind of quit that once I started doing the Superior Cannabis Company, but I'm still a mentor, and that was awesome because every time I got to sell someone's cover crop seed, I learned with them too. So I already knew what my 20 years of experience did, and then I got to add on their 3 more years of experience. I learned faster. It's really networking. Custom seeding operations. Who has kids that want to come back to the farm? This is a great opportunity. Great opportunity. There's already people out there doing spraying, combine, planting. Here's another option. I got an organic cover crop, or organic crops. Never planned on it, but look how clean those rows were. And I'll tell you what, it's not like that every year. I've had disasters too, okay? But the cool thing about having a disaster in organic and having livestock is, I send the cattle in. If I have a problem, those cattle go out there, they get to graze that. I don't lose money because they're making me money by eating the weeds. Community support. Tell you what, you can't build a brand like Superior Cannabis Company without community support. And we've done that in Austin. We show them certified organic. We show them regenerative practices verified. We show them what we're doing on the farm. I don't want to go sell corn to the co-op anymore and just, whatever they give me, they give me. I want my product to be getting people coming asking, hey, I'll pay you. How much do you want for your crop? That's a good way to farm. All right, talked about weather. There's I-90, there's me. That's what comes down to me. 2 pipes, I get flooded. The cover crops help infiltrate that water better. And Mark, you're gonna talk at all tomorrow about those infiltration tests? Maybe, okay, all right, he is. All right, I'm capturing more carbon, more water, right? All the United States, the whole world is clamoring about carbon. I capture it. No big deal to me. It's what I do. It's what we do. We can solve it at a tenth of the cost of what we're spending out there on other stuff. And of course, there I am. I feel lonely, but realistically, financially, look at that. And this is rough estimate. These numbers are probably low, but it's pretty even. But when you start looking at everything else that's happening on the farm, more tillage tools, more maintenance, more labor, bigger horsepower tractors. Tillage promotes weeds, and I absolutely believe that. I see it. I know that. More erosion of your best asset. Drainage. I grew up tiling. Man, my cover crops do as good drainage as anything. Most times, every drainage guy will tell you, you don't have a drainage problem, you have a water infiltration problem. Simple as that. And I love it because those cover crops capture nutrients, produce nutrients, reduce nutrients leaching. Financially, that sounds like a really good deal. And of course, why do I graze cover crops? I think these numbers are low. These are actually from quite a while ago. But that's just a rough estimate. That's not counting the 3-4 months I'm in the pastures. I can feed almost all year long just all grazing. And lots of times though, I will say it depends on weather. And what would it cost to buy feed, chopped silage? I haven't chopped silage. You know how nice it is to have corn and actually get to sell it? And now, soil life. Why is that in the financial? Why do I have this in the benefits financially? Well, for one, it's freaking amazing to see that much earthworm activity. But guess what those earthworms do? They make nitrogen 4.6 times more available. They make phosphorus 7.2 times more available. And those earthworm channels, they are lined with their excrements. That's where this is coming from. And guess what? In those earthworm channels, my roots go down those really, really easy. 11 times more potassium available up to. You're not going to always get it. It all depends on your soil health, where you are. This is from Dr. Willis. Everything coming out of a worm is a neutral pH. I've limed like one time in the last 14 years. Remember I said plus negatives, if I do something bad, I want to do something good. I just kind of threw this in here. I'm organic and I'm conventional. This is just a really easy way for me to compare what I'm doing. Because I don't think either way is right and I don't think either way is wrong. I just try to do my best. And so everything I do is either a +1 or a -1. Simple as that. Not very scientific, is it? But it's really easy and it works. All right, everything I do, I assess something to it. I used to be this. I used to use all stack traits, synthetic fertilizer, tillage passes, chemical passes, another chemical, fall tillage. That's a -6. So what do I want to do the next year if I'm a -6? I want to go up, right? I want to go up. I went to stack traits, use livestock fertilizer, and actually I don't do stack traits. I haven't done them for a long time. Active growing covers in the spring, no-till planting. Chemical burn down, that's a negative. I'm sorry. It is. Chemical pass, another negative. Oop. But look what I am at the end of the year. I'm a +3, and I'm always trying to get better. You can have weather problems, you can have lots of problems. Just keep on trying to get better. That's all we can do. Now, soil health has a ripple effect, and that's on the environment. It's on the ag economy, which is the backbone of the U.S. economy, I believe, and on our human health. All right, it's huge. Human health-wise, I'm just going to fly over this, but this is why I say tillage is not good, neither is chemical. Diseases have skyrocketed. And the sad thing is, we spend $700 billion on the military in the U.S. Is it the highest in the world? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you think we spend on healthcare? 3.5 trillion. That's 7 times more money. Someone's making money. We're not making money. Let's start making money and keep it ourselves. All right, this is getting towards the end. Lots of less. I like to put this out there because I want interaction from you guys. I want to ask you, what do you see less of? Less weeds, all right? What else? Less soil, so it's covered. What else? Less chemical input. What else? Erosion. What kind of erosion? Absolutely. What else? Less machinery cost, less labor cost. We said chemical input. I don't do stacked traits. How about less temperature swings? When that ground's open, it's 130 during the day and it gets super cold at night. I have a nice, roof over it. Now that's a nice even temperature. But I still think the number one thing that I see less of, less bad press from city people and less restrictions, because I'm not making a problem. Less restrictions, that sounds really good to me. We're about done? Oh, all right, biggest soil failure is you don't plant something, thinking tillage will solve everything, thinking you can't make it work in your fields, because it can, not networking with other farmers, that's huge. Cover crop termination, not realizing everything is connected. Everything you do has an effect. Right seed, right time, for every action there is a reaction, positive or negative. Absolutely true. And not listening to Mother Nature, all right? And so this is dedicated to my dad. He said everybody has a story to tell, and I said, no. Well, he's right, because that was my story. All right, and we can end. This is just a little video of our Superior Cannabis Company. We do field days at the end of the year. September, we do a farmer day on Friday, and on Saturday we do a hemp and food health day. This is the hemp and food health day. 20 minutes over. You guys can get up and walk out. I'm sorry, no answers, but you can have, if any questions, you're welcome to come up and talk to me afterwards. But I love this because this is getting the consumer to realize what we're doing in the regenerative world. And this is how we make a difference on our prices that we get from people. All right? Oh, there's Mark. He's always got to be there. I'm excited about that. I get more excited about that day than I do the farmer day. Even though I love working with farmers, this will benefit us more in the future. We taught people how to grow their own food, how to can their own food, how to food prep. Lots of amazing things. And each year we do something different. Jolene Carlson from the Minnesota Soil Coalition, she spoke this year on gut health, which is absolutely rated, same as our soil health. Oh, and the topless party bus was a blast. So, no one believed me when I said that, but there it is. City people learning about what's really going on in the ag world. All right. And that was done by Daniel and Graywood Films, who's filming this today. So thank you guys.